Welcome to the NQ80 Daily, and we're going to talk about Pep Guardiola's new contract because we are some kind of masochist. Isn't that right, Wayne?
Yes, I must say, when you proposed this as a topic, I thought, well, what are you doing to me, Ed? But no, I'm here to have this conversation, and I simply cannot wait.
Well, I always assumed you were just a disciple of his because once upon a time you had hair, and then Guardiola turns up at City, and now you don't.
He's still got hair. Don't go. The baldest is a community, right?
It is
the bald community.
Baldism.
And we don't take kindly to you putting
Making
non-balds. No, making fun. He can make fun, that's fine. But don't put non-balds in our category. He's not a bald yet. He tries to be, but he's got too much hair. So, like, Ten Hag was a bald. That's proper bald. You can't have it like number one shaven. That doesn't count as bald. It's not part of it. So, just like, when you try and be a football manager and say that you're the best of all time, but you've given an unlimited cash fund, then you can't say that you're the best of all time because there's not enough evidence there. Much like his obscuring of the bald head. How do we know he's really bald? We don't, because he's got hair on his head.
Shaving it off. Yeah.
Oh my
God.
God.
All right. I take it. Look, I proposed this topic because the delicious thought of Pep Guardiola managing in the Vanarama kind of popped into my head. Oh, I don't know if it's called the Vanarama anymore, is it? But the idea that he might end up managing down the leagues, I think it'd be fantastic. It'd be fantastic just for the bants, and our enjoyment. But for football overall, because Pep would get a challenge then, wouldn't he? Instead of having cheat codes of unlimited state wealth or Lionel Messi.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm taking your question at face value, right? So, see, on this series of events where City get demoted into the Vauxhall Conference, I'm going to go deeper and cut the new on that. And he's lining up against, Stourbridge and everything. I'm going to presume that all of his the expensive people go. So he's left with, let's say, Rico Lewis and et al. There would be some kind of thing where he'd try playing without a goalkeeper. I'd like to see it. I would like to see it. The thing is I'm never one of these people who would subscribe to that theory of you will only see a good manager when they manage at a lower club. I don't necessarily think that, because I think that is massively detracting from good managers. There's obviously a logical argument to climbing your way to the top and then proving yourself to be there. But
there's a skill in managing elite players.
The point being that Guardiola's gone from top club to top club, that kind of thing. But there's also a difference, quite significant, but subtle enough, that he's generally gone. Barcelona are different. Obviously, like I said, they're the exceptions to this rule. He's gone to the place with the better resources everywhere he's been. Now, what we haven't seen at City, and I've said it so many times before, is that it's not evidence of the fact that he's not the greatest coach in the world or the greatest coach of all time. It's that the evidence that is there doesn't exist for me to say that he is. I'm not saying that he isn't, because there's plenty of people who would say you're just being bloody stupid, Barton, about that. Plenty of other things they said that about, but on that specific topic. But I just don't see the evidence. Now, I'm not saying that take him to the Vauxhall Conference and reinventing football all the way back up to the top flight with Manchester City would be proof of that. But I'd at least made me think, do you know what? There's something about him as a football manager where you can say to me, he's improving players, or he's done this, or he's done that, and it's about football. Rico Lewis is a very bad case to make this example.
Yeah, he wouldn't stay at City either. But
exactly, I'm talking about, like, they have to be like, you have to go back and get Jamie Pollock as he is now to play in and if you don't know who Jamie Pollock is, if you're too young, just Google his own
Sean
goal.
Goater, aged 54, playing in the net. Is Sean still alive?
Sean is. He's
easy.
Sean, Jamie Pollock, Alfinger Haaland, because he played for Manchester City as well. Steve
Georgie
Lo-
King-Clancy, all of them. You get them all back.
Well,
yeah.
he was better than Cantona, we were told at the time. So get him in and he can prove it. Steve Lomas, Andy Dibble, your boys taking a hell of a beating down in the Vauxhall Conference. Get them to play like modern City. Get them moving the ball around, screaming their faces, and then everyone. It's the altruistic thing for me because we all remember the political stuff they had with Barcelona, that he wouldn't wear certain badges and stuff like that. There's always a line with him.
Well,
where
he used to wear a Catalan independence ribbon.
So there's always a line where he straddles really close to something, but people forget about all this because they want to project this idea that he's the greatest. Like, you've just got to accept now that it's accepted wisdom that Guardiola's the greatest coach of all time, and I can't subscribe to it because I don't see the evidence for it.
All right, we didn't even reference the news. News is his contract with an option for another one. It was running out in the summer. There was a lot of talk that he might leave Manchester City, especially given the case of 115 or 130 or 150 something charges, depending on which way you reference it, and the thought that we might get an answer in January timeline with a punishment towards the end of this season. And obviously City will drag that out for years and years and years through the courts anyway. But there was this notion that maybe he would leave. And this has kind of quashed that. And he's here until 25 at least, but probably 26. That would take him up to a decade with the club. More than he spent with Barcelona or Bayern Munich, and more than he spent banned from football during his drug charges and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So committing his career and reputation to this sportswashing project.
Yeah.
It's quite a thing, really, for the greatest manager of all time, TM.
Yeah, it is. And a thing for football, really. So it's bigger than Guardiola, and it's bigger than Manchester City. This is because take my last point away, and the fact that I'm a Manchester United supporter and Manchester City are a rival. Yes, I know, right?
Wow, it's news to me. I didn't know.
What I mean is taking that away from the point of what this actually is with Manchester City is this is an era of football where you've got someone who's rated as the greatest of all time, but there's an argument to say that the system in which he's operating in has systematically devalued English football when it was at its strongest of all time. So the competition...
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument.
So the competition is probably stronger than anywhere else in the world, but it's nowhere near as worthwhile a product as A, it's made out to be, and B, once was, because the competition that's insular is... If you take City off it, then apart from the product to watch, which I think would quickly change anyway, because things change in football like that, there's no doubt that he has influenced English football, right? There's no... I take everything that I'm saying away. There's no doubt that in terms of being an influential football manager, he's definitely in the top 2 or 3 of all time.
Look at all the accolades.
Exactly. Yeah. You can't. But I'm just saying, I don't think that's a good thing for football. I don't think it's good to watch.
Do you know how much he's an influence on English football? I bet if you looked in the National League, there are a bunch of teams playing tippy-tappy football.
There are.
When they should be launching it like proper men do and all that. But so, no, he's definitely had an influence, and some of it, absolutely nauseating. He has in the business world, they talk about regulatory capture, where the most powerful company in anyone's sector effectively takes over the regulator, and they're not regulated in a way. And City have done that to English football, right? They've captured it. And now England the UK as a country, as an economy, and the Premier League in particular, have been particularly open to this kind of inward investment from foreign owners or countries, in the case of UAE, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi Arabia. And I don't think. Do I think that's it? I'm kind of neutral on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Generally, does it really matter where the owner comes from? Not really, except we might be in a situation very soon well, there are 5 English owners left, or partial if you count Sir Jim. Given that a few of those are looking to get out, we might be left with just Sir Jim in 2 years' time. A lot of those will be American private equity-backed type conglomerate syndicates, and they would be very, very interested if you look at the valuations of MLS clubs or US sports franchises more generally in taking away promotion and relegation and making it a close shop. Very, very interested. So that's the thing I worry about. Now, would that be good for the Abu Dhabi Sportswashing project? I don't know. They're not in this for the money. They're in it for something very, very different. So that's the wider context in which English football has completely transformed over the last 10 years in particular, where all this influx of private equity short-term-ish capital that's come in. And then you get this very different thing at City where they've very obviously cheated to get themselves into a position where they are the top financial club. And then now they're using that financial clout in order to sustain their success.
Yeah. But
and that's the context of Pep Guardiola's success at City, right? It's built on this paper tiger, right? It's not real.
And the more that, we reference the fact that it's a sports washing project and the value that it has as that can only be sustainable as long as everyone else plays along. We've had this subject before on the podcast where we've talked about, the recent rulings and how they benefit Manchester City and Newcastle, but how long other teams will play along with that. The pyramid that's always been there and the social responsibility of the other clubs to make sure that the other clubs are looked after.
Yeah.
You mentioned just before we started recording, it made me laugh about the Amorim versus Guardiola debate, and I know that's probably where we're going this, so it's a good point for me to segue into this, because he's also a point that's exacerbated by Liverpool and Manchester City, and Arsenal in recent years. And the reason why I say that is because they've been in competition with Manchester City. They've been the closest team to them, and their closest rivals are Manchester United. So it does them a benefit to make Manchester City look better, right? So Arsenal hate United. Arsenal fans would much rather say City are a better team than Manchester United. They would much rather say City's treble's better than United's treble because they hate United. I understand that's football rivalry. But what they do in that period of time is that because we're here and now, and this is the moment that we're all experiencing, and we all want the here and now to be something that's better than what we've experienced before. So you've had all the Liverpool fans saying this is the greatest Liverpool team of all time. There's been a little bit of a local revisionism in the last 2 or 3 years. I think there are a few Liverpool fans who would probably, like the 7 or 8 players who were making an all-time Liverpool 11 3 years ago, probably 1 or 2 now. And the Arsenal fans, I think, really know that they've got to win something to really be included. But the point I'm making is that they think that by mere virtue of being in competition with this Manchester City side, that it raises the echelon of what their achievement is. And it devalues everything that they have already achieved in a tougher, more competitive environment. Now, we can watch this with objective eyes and say, you are doing that to your own history. That's no point of us. We know because we finished second to them and we've been nowhere near. And we can say that these are terrible United sides in the context of a Premier League Manchester United side, no matter how close they were to Manchester City or how uncompetitive they were in relation to these Liverpool and Manchester and Arsenal sides. But they, in conflating that and making it look like we're more competitive and this is the best Premier League of all time, when they're the ones hollering that as the contenders. They are the ones raising them City to a higher platform. You understand where I'm going with that?
I understand what you're getting at. Yeah, that somehow the status of coming second to Manchester City has any value, right? And I mean, that's a pity for football, right? I mean, I haven't got much respect for Mikel Arteta as a human, really. I think he's a little shit and he really annoys me. And I barely think about Arsenal at all, even though Arsenal fans are all going to bed thinking about United. I mean, look, the guy who started Arsenal Fan TV, he's got a second channel. Somehow it pops up in my YouTube feed. He talks about United on there like half the time. Like they can't help themselves, right? Yeah. But sorry for the dig. I'm totally uncalled for, Ed. Be respectful or something like that.
Don't worry.
But yes, your point that somehow, like coming second to this like state-backed thing, it has a value. Yeah, no, it's a pity for football, and when it all falls down, and assuming it does, and they can't, trump their way out of their crimes, then we'll have to reevaluate what the last 15 years of the Premier League has really meant. Yeah. And Pep along with it. And I don't think history will look upon him kindly, although it does right now, because it's very, very hard for any media to sustain the kind of narratives that, hang on a minute, isn't this all built on cheating? Well, like they can't really talk about it like that because it kind of devalues their own coverage. And the case in point is how The Athletic approach this, right? Now owned by the New York Times, major media outlet, sort of premier sports only focused outlet in the UK as well, put a lot of investment into their coverage. And their main Manchester City guy, Sam Lee, is just an extension of the City PR department, right? Nothing more. I mean, he's like sycophantic shilling for whatever shite they've put out. The latest documentary on like how wonderful Pep and the owners are. And he writes an article, like some in-depth think piece about this piece of propaganda. Like it's absolutely nauseating. And I like almost like, I have no respect to the guy whatsoever, but I also think like once upon a time, he went to journalism school wanting to be a real journalist, and this is where he's ended up. And I kind of feel sorry for him, honestly. Like it's absolutely fucking pathetic. Just like
so
the absolutely lack of dignity there doing that, right? But I went off into that rant because it's very, very hard for the media to kind of cover this, right? And, I jokingly made a Donald Trump comparison, but it's the same problem there, right? It's like the wilder the stuff, the harder it is to go, hang on, isn't normal something different than this, right? Yeah. Well, normal football is not state-run actors paying the quote-unquote best manager in the world £17 million a year while using state funding to take what was a historical but mid-ranked club to being like unprecedented success, right? That is not normal, right? And sometimes we forget that, and it's very hard for the media to cover it like that.
Wasn't, but is now, unfortunately, like the last 5 years. I mean, if something like that lasts for longer than 5 years, I would say it's become normal, because that's half a generation. So you will have had at least one governing powers opportunity to eliminate that problem from the game. So if that has outlasted that, and it's become what a generation of people have grown up in, because a generation of people have grown up as watching City as a dominant team and will only recognise Manchester City like this. And also a generation of people will only know Pep Guardiola as a Manchester City manager, which is strange to think about, considering... Yeah. But that it's just age, and it's a cycle of life, really.
I mean, we've got kids in our under 18s who are like training with the first team squad who've never known anything other than
exactly
City being a prominent team. Yeah.
It's wild to think about, but and my point there is that because it gets to that point, then that it becomes part of what accepted. What's accepted in football? I mean, what you look at historically speaking, and you say, all right, well, this is an era now that will become, all right. You would want to think that this won't be remembered as a competitive era in English football, reflected against the rest of the Premier League era. I think it will, unfortunately, because I think the ship has sailed on that. I think there'll be people like me writing about the Premier League and Manchester United in the next forever, how long I'm alive, where I'll be talking about it in the context of everything of which I know to be true. There'll be other people who talk about the Premier League. Like I said, it doesn't do much media, any service or any purpose at all to disparage the product when they're reporting on it. I understand that. So
it's very hard for them to do that. Yeah, but that leaves it kind of contextless, right? So they'll do a discrete piece on the charges, right? And you can go into some depth, but it's discrete. Now, the honest way of doing it would be Manchester City beat Ipswich 5-0 with their 15 years of state-funded sports washing cheating as the context for this victory, right? That would be the honest way of reporting it, but it's very, very difficult to do that.
Some reporters do that, don't they? Once a season, you'll see a reporter doing that. That's the reporter who usually does it.
Just the best way of doing it is like you could do it factually like that, or just be snarky and snide about it and dismissive, which you should be, right? That's the appropriate way to belittle what is a PR product, right? You should, like, given what it is, you should make fun of it. Anyway, I'm not quite sure what I thought this episode would be, other than like it is. We haven't even talked about Amorim versus Pep, but we'll get into that, because I don't know. It's the start of a new journey for United on Sunday against Ipswich, and I think everyone's really, really positive. The noises coming out of Carrington have been really positive. Everyone seems to like the new guy. I mean, we thought that Ten Hag was the saviour, and Ole and Mourinho and Van Gaal and Moyes before that, or maybe not Moyes. So, yeah, like, take all that with a pinch of salt, I guess. We'll see what the product looks like on the pitch. But it's been a very positive introduction for Amorim, and I'm kind of looking forward to, hopefully, there being a rivalry. Maybe, unless City get relegated, then there wouldn't really be one. But, hey...
there still will be.
Because the rivalry on the pitch, that is, would mean that we are back. And so we'll see. Let's hope there is. Short term, this season, we're going to win the next 20-something games, aren't we, in a row, because Ruben doesn't lose.
Well, yeah, that's the rule. I did kind of allude to. I mean, I tried to went wildly off track, which isn't like me, when I was bringing in the piece about Amorim versus because my point being is that, is it enough to challenge like Arteta? Klopp's a different animal, because I think Klopp was the best coach in the world, and I think his achievement at Liverpool proved that, but not in the fact that he went toe-to-toe with Guardiola. It's that he made something of his own, and you can easily tell that without City's project, Liverpool would have been a dominant side. So maybe we've got something to be thankful for Guardiola after all. That we wouldn't have had that.
Well, sure. I mean, I got to the stage when Liverpool were challenging, of like supporting City effectively, because it's better that City won. This is how I rationalised it. Better that City win, because I don't really believe in what this thing is. It's all fake and fraudulent anyway. Better than that happens than Liverpool fans get to celebrate a title, which is like a totally bizarre way and completely contradictory to everything I just said about for the good of football.
But that's what the era is, this 10, 15
year
period.
Skewed everything. Yeah. It skewed everything. And Guardiola's at the heart of that.
Yep.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. You can catch me on every platform going, including Blue Sky, where football Twitter has migrated at NQAT Pod. So X, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads. Nothing's happening on Threads. Instagram, YouTube, all on NQAT Pod. And Wayne is on most of those too.
I am. But don't post it on Twitter, because
you'll get yourself banned. Yeah. Very good. Thanks, everyone. Catch you soon. Bye now.